Yep, we'll try that. Good. I've got to switch this thing on apparently. Does that work? Okay, so I got two instructions. One is to talk to the microphone, the other is to stay on this rug. And I'm a bit of a wanderer, so that's going to be a challenge. Anyway, good morning, and I am delighted and proud to have been invited back to another Hub event. So thank you very much for the invitation. I hope I can justify your time and effort this morning. So what's showing on the slide? There we go. 60 minutes MBA. It is not my intention to downgrade the value of an MBA, but it is my intention to help you understand what are the essential parts that might apply to a small business owner. If you don't have the odd 25,000 and a couple of years hanging around to take an MBA and you'd rather get on with business, then this might help you make a better start on that. So how many of you drive a car? Raise your hand. Pretty much most of you. Keep your hand up if you think you're a good driver. All right. So would you take an advanced driving course? Do you think that would help you improve, even if you're a good driver? Okay. So this process is kind of like an advanced driving course for your business. So however good you are, there's always room for improvement. There's always something that you didn't quite catch or some balance that you need to understand. So Master of Business Administration, you know it takes a lot of time, a lot of money. I used to teach it, so I know how complex it can get. What I call this one is the MSBA, which is the Mastery of Small Business Administration. And that's what we're going to go through today. I'm going to try and give you the essence. The outline says I'm going to give you a core framework, and I will give you a copy of the framework when it comes to that slide later on, and you will all get a copy of all of the slides electronically after the meeting, so you don't have to take too many notes beyond that. Key elements, tips, things like that when they come up. So there are two key concepts that I will cover. One is the framework, which is the core structure underlying both your business and any MBA program. But the other is mindset. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on mindset because that is one of the key issues. You really can't have one without the other, at least not effectively. So mindset is really about your belief system. And you probably know a fair amount about your belief system. There's so much publicity on it these days that it's fairly common. But it governs pretty much everything you do. It's built from birth, basically, and it affects your mind. It's your version of the reality or the world as seen by your brain, which is not necessarily the truth. And that's one of the things that you have to watch for. So we talk about being a filters for reality. Just a little interesting little exercise here. There's a diagram here. How many of you can see the white triangle? Raise your hand if you see it. Okay. Guess what? There is no white triangle. It's not there. It's purely a series of 6 shapes arranged in a way that made your brain think there's a white triangle. There's no lines around it. There's nothing that separates it from the background. It isn't there. So your brain takes what you see and interprets it into your reality based on your belief system. So whatever you believe, it'll fit. And maybe you won't like that. Maybe that's not your favorite way of success, in which case you may need to change it. And you can. Not always easy. Let me explain how difficult that can be. The iceberg here is a quick view of how you fit into the world. Above the waterline, the part that you see, what people see about you, the decisions you make, the behaviors that you exhibit, and so on. But below that is your entire structure of skills, values, and beliefs. Now, if you want to change something in the way that you do things, the skills are fairly easy. You go read another book, take another course, refresh your brain, take a MBA. The values are a little tougher. They take a little bit more effort. The values are based on what you've been brought up to fit in your culture, family, and so on and so forth. But below that, the tough part are the beliefs, because your brain says this is the truth, and your brain is mostly wrong. So you sometimes have to dig deep into that and say, okay, what would I like the truth to be? And you can do that. And therefore, let me rearrange my beliefs. But it takes effort, and it takes change management and so on. But you can do it. So proceeding beyond that, you can do anything you want to do within reason. I say within reason because I doubt that I could be considered to play goal for the Arsenal football team at the moment. Probably too old. Probably don't have the physical skills anymore. But there was one time when I might have been able to suggest that that could be my chosen path. So I have a really good relationship with Warren Buffett. It's been going on for years. It works like this. He writes stuff and I read it. One of his quotes I like is, you don't have to be genius. You don't have to do amazing things. You just have to step forward and do something, and it will eventually work. So don't let yourself be constrained by limiting beliefs. If you want your business to grow big, make it grow big. You can. If you don't want to make it grow big, that's fine too. Just make it successful. All of those things are in your power. So what I'm going to do here is give you the structure that you can apply to make that simpler for yourself. So there are some things that you need to align, and you must have a passion for what you do. As a small business owner, without that passion, you're not going to go very far. It's going to show that you're not that committed to it. You must also have some skills. I'll explain what happens if you don't. And presumably, if you're in business, it must have a value to the universe, to the marketplace that you're looking at. Now, if you just have a passion for something, and it has good value, you can decide, hey, I really want to sell one of those, or I really want to do that, but you don't have any skills, that is not sustainable. You'll be found out. It doesn't really work. If you have a passion for something and the skill, but nobody wants it, well, that's just self-serving. It's okay if it's a hobby, but not much use if it's a business. And if you have the skill and the value, then without the commitment, it's not going to work. I have a daughter. One of my daughters was a brilliant musician. She has perfect pitch, and she could pick up any instrument. She had classical piano training, but she could pick up any instrument and learn to play it in a very short time. At 16, she was a guest oboist in the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra. And we thought, this girl's got a future. She's fine. This is great. She ended up school, sold her instrument, and gave up music altogether. And she became a waitress. Oh, a brilliant career move. And we thought, oh, what the heck? So later in life, when I talked to her about that, she said, well, it was so easy. There was no challenge to it. I just kept doing it. It was just work. So however brilliant she was, the passion wasn't there, the commitment wasn't there, and she's now an art director in the movie industry. So she went from music to painting and then on from that. So she had the talents, but it didn't need to be in music. So all of those things, the sweet spot is, excuse me, the sweet spot is that you have all of them in balance. And most of what we do in life, in business, and everywhere is about balance. Balance of the various forces, balance of the energy necessary to make it work. So now back to the reality of the structure that we're going to work with. Framework. I said the main part is a framework. The brain loves structure and organized material. So a framework is important and valuable to help you think and understand. And that's what we're going to base the structure of this talk on for the next components. The framework I have is called I'm stumbling here. It's the 6 columns or the 6 pillars of business support, and you'll see that it's based on, you have products and services, and you have a marketplace that you're aiming at, and you have some kind of a brand or business persona that you put together, and then you've got to have the structure that makes it all work. And we're going to run through that briefly, and I'm going to take each one and give a very quick outline of what's in it. So the next part of this is a bunch of slides, and I'll move through them fairly quickly and you'll get a copy of them, but just to give you a sense of all of the components. So the first one, the marketplace, we mentioned, you need to kind of have a sense of what that is. And I suspect you know most of this, being part of the hub and its products here. Products and services. One of the big areas I get from most of my clients is when I ask them about their product, I get some kind of either a mumbled kind of disconnected discussion about things they think they've got. And I often have to say, well, so what is that? A lot of people are not clear on how they express what it is they provide. And that's something that you need to spend a lot of time on, making sure you have absolute clarity on what you think you have and how other people can perceive that. And that's the first step in any clarity of your business development. Need to know what your marketplace is. I'm sure you've heard all of the details of that. I'm not going to go into that here, but knowing your target market or markets, you can have more than one, is important. And then having a brand that you choose. What do you want the world to see of you? What do you want to be in front of the world? And then the various parts. So the first one is your destination. And the destination is the vision, the goals, the core objectives. There's so much stuff on that now. I'm sure you've covered this before. You've talked about January 2020, and I'm sure you've all talked about going forward. You know you need a clear vision. You need a target. A couple of things on that. People resist that sometimes that I'm working with. Oh, I'm not clear about my vision. I don't want to be clear about my vision. I just want to kind of take things along. But you do need to have some sense of direction. And it doesn't matter if your vision is not right. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you kind of set something. And what is interesting is if I get people, I tell people, well, invent a vision. Come up with something that you don't dislike. And they spend time putting that together, and all of a sudden they start to actually think, well, maybe I do have a vision. So it's just a matter of organizing yourself and setting yourself that goal to create that. The other things from business clarity are and sorry, I have to keep talking because I can't read the words on that slide there. Business life cycle, you know about planning, the various levels of planning. We'll talk about each of those in a moment. And strategic plan, typically when I started in business, it was usually a 10-year plan. If you went to China, it was a generation. These days, it's more like a 3 or 5 or 3-year plan is strategic or long-term. And then there's an annual, and the most important part now is the 90-day or quarterly plan. So I'll cover that in a while. Financial control doesn't mean you have to be a financial genius. You just have to understand what some of the key points mean, because you can hire a financial genius or outsource it, but you need to know what it means when you get a position. You need to know your break-even analysis is important. These are the things that are your survival in small business. You can be lucky and ignore them all and keep going and hope that they fall into place. Probably about a 10% success rate. Or you can put a little effort in and get yourself closer to a 90% success rate by understanding what's happening before it takes you down. So things like cash flow forecast, budgeting, those kinds of things sound boring, and they probably are. But there are ways to do them effectively and efficiently and quickly and get them done and out of the way. Debt management might be an issue if you depend on people paying you on time. Not every industry has good fortune with getting paid quickly. The next one, sales and marketing. Technically, they are two separate components, but they are so intertwined that you pretty much have to see them together. But those of you who are not quite clear on that, marketing is where you deal with the general public, anybody but an individual, where it's just really bringing the understanding of who you are to their knowledge. And sales is when you're actually focusing on an individual or a corporation with the intent of providing a service. So there is a separation or a boundary between the two, but they have a lot of overlapping components. So marketing has a marketing plan. You need a marketing plan. Value proposition, you can see the parts there. As I said, they'll all be on your slides. You'll get copies of these. So what this is doing, as a reminder, is just giving you a set of components so that we can go forward from there. And also, by the way, if you have any questions on any of these, write them down, because of the question and answer session afterwards. You get a chance to discuss them a little bit. Sales process. We have a number of people here involved in marketing and sales, and I'm sure they've shared their expertise with you and probably had some sessions with them at some point. The next one is delivery. And delivery is, okay, I've got a product or a service. How do I gather it up and put it in the hands of my market? So it can be looking after your customers, your customer care. Supply chain, how do I get all the things I need to make it be? If it's just a service, you may not have a supply chain. Customer journey, how do they meet you, buy from you, work with you after that? The delivery chain is your setting up of how you actually get the product, make it visible, and then get it in their hands and support their continued use of it. So those are the main components there. Resources covers a number of things. The human resources, of course, finance, the people that work with you. Alliances and partnerships. I don't necessarily mean formal ones, but with your suppliers, with the other people. Especially in a small business, we work a lot by collaboration and alliances, working with each other. And the infrastructure is basically the process, what you have in place in terms of maybe systems, or it may all be manual. Doesn't matter, it's still process. It's whatever works so that you can have repeatable practices. What this does is make sure you don't waste your time reinventing the wheel every week. Oh gosh, I got to write invoices. Let me remember how that works. You have a system that is basically automatic for all of the fundamental components of the business that you don't need to waste energy on. The more you can make that a repeatable practice and a business habit, the less effort and energy you have to expend on it. So process is a very key part. Now, so that's the full set, and it is necessary to have them in balance. If you don't, you can get a disruption in your business and things can get out of balance and fall apart. If you have a very large business, those pillars might be very complex and very big. Lots of detail, lots of subcomponents to them. If you have a very small business, a solo business, they might be quite small and very simple. But they're all there, they're all present, and they all need to be in balance. Okay? So what I've done beyond that is here's all these components. Okay, that's a lot of detail. How do we make that effective? What I suggest is that you create yourself a pathway, some kind of if you like, a syllabus, a curriculum, something that says, these are all the things I need to know how to do. Let me give myself a way to do that. And so I've created one for you, and we have a copy of that handy. So this is what I call my path to success. and it's the one I use with my clients. It's served me well for many years, and we're passing out a copy now because you can follow the next pieces on that chart. You'll see all of the pieces there. Okay, so on the left hand here, the 6 pillars is what the model that we just looked for. In other words, that's the core, that's your knowledge base from which to work with this. And we'll talk about the levels here, the 5 levels. Remember, this is my suggestion. It isn't what you should do, but you need to create some path. You can use this one, you can adapt it, you can create your own, but have a path. Have a structure that gives you a way to get from where you are now to where you want to be in terms of your knowledge. The 5 levels are here. You can see what they're called, and you can see them in those grey boxes around the areas, and I'm just going to cover each one. What I can do here is, in obviously a fairly limited time, is give you some examples of what each comprises of. There'll be more than I can show you in one session, but it'll give you a clear understanding of what is in there, I hope. So future vision, we just talked about that. 3 parts. Mindset I touched on earlier. Your dream, by the way, which is a necessary part of building your mindset and building the business. If you're running a small business, the probability is you're doing it because you want it to achieve the things that you want in your dream. So your personal dream is very much tied in to the business vision in a small business owner. So the business vision now becomes, how do I take my dream, how do I take my personal vision, and how do I apply that to the structure of my business so that it will deliver my dream? Right? That's the ultimate goal, presumably. So that's the key parts of the future vision. And you've heard this so many times now, it's become so common to talk about your why. Everybody familiar with the concept? You must know why you're doing it. And that's fairly easy to do. Why do I want that? Well, because I want a big house, I want the status, I want lots of money, I want a Porsche, and so on. But the other thing that I caution people on is understand the consequences. I've met quite a few people who achieved their dream and then were totally frustrated because they didn't like it. Visualize what your dream will do for you. If your dream is, I want a promotion to the top of my organization, and those are the ones I've run into quite often where they're disappointed. They give up what they're good at and what they like doing, and now they do something like administration and stuff that they hate doing, and they wish they hadn't got the promotion at all, but now they're dependent on the money and so on, but they're unhappy. If you want a big house, know what it takes to run a big house. If you want a big family, know what it takes to run a big family. I think about those things in advance and think, does that really fit my dream, my vision of me, and not what other people think I should be, by the way. Be careful about that. Make sure it is what you think you need to be. So impact on your lifestyle, what it takes to maintain that dream. So do a little bit, when you've got your dream, go back through that and say, what does that look like? Can I envision what that feels like when I'm there? And then think about all the consequences of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of the things I have, and I'm happy to share that with you, Emma, for you, a dream builder, which is just a simple template to give you a clue of how to build a dream and then how to turn that into a dream chart that says, this is going to be my poster for the future. And one thing I touched on a bit earlier, it's okay if you change your mind. It's okay if along the way you decide, I don't want that path, I'm going to change to this. Now, don't do it randomly and too often, but it's perfectly okay to discover that I've learned new stuff. By the way, how many people have made bad decisions in their life? I never have made a bad decision. Because when I made them, they were a good decision. No, they had bad results. We never make a decision deliberately. I'm going to make this bad decision. Do we? No, I think this is a good decision. I'm going to make this decision. What goes wrong is, oh, it didn't work out that way. But it was a good decision at the time. So always think through beyond the decisions. What does that look like when I've achieved it? What does that look like when I come to that point? So the business vision is necessary on your own. It just keeps you heading in the right direction. If you have staff, it's very important that they understand your business vision as well, and it's clearly communicated. So these are the important parts. And the business vision is, where do I see the business going, not just where do I see me going. The next level in your chart is the foundation. The foundation is your branding. And this, of course, there's brand and branding, and they're two separate things. As Rob will tell you. Where is it? Where's Rob? Okay. All right. There's your offering, which often needs clarity. And then there's your customer, which also needs clarity and understanding. One of the things that I have, a lot of people resist, how are we doing for time? A lot of people resist the idea of creating a profile, an avatar, a customer persona. Oh, you know, that's limiting. It actually isn't. You might have 5 different products. So how can I create one customer? Well, create 5 customers, create 5 avatars. You might have one product that goes to 5 different kinds of people. That's okay, create 5 separate avatars, because each one has a personality that you approach differently. And what is interesting is when you create an avatar and you present to that avatar, people feel like you're talking to them. The people it fits feel, oh, they're talking to me. And the people that aren't fitting it saying, gee, I wish they were talking to me, I'd like to be like that, and they'll still come along. So you do not restrict your business by focusing on a particular customer. You help clarify it to those who really are likely to need it. And you can have more than one. So your business is a value delivery system. You're creating something that you hope somebody wants that will be valuable to them, and you're delivering it to them in some way. And that's what you need. That's part of your infrastructure. Your product and or service, I tend to use the term product. One of the key things today is the concept of productizing your service. So even if you just have a totally, maybe life coaching, well, that's not a product, that's a service. But look at possibilities of packaging it with a start and an end and a finite definition, and creating a product that you can actually sell as a concept. That's considered extremely powerful in terms of selling services, which otherwise seem to be a bit sort of nebulous and unending. So giving people a concept, you don't have to stick with it, you can vary it, but at least in clarity of structure, clarity in marketing and so on, it's a very important and valuable point. Have a product list. List your products, all of the different products. It might be the same product used in different ways. Doesn't matter. List everything that you want to sell to somebody or what you want other people to use. Separate it by the various customer segments. You can separate it by channel. You might have an online product versus a physical product and so on. And of course by revenue stream. Knowing which ones are making money and which ones aren't versus the effort is an important part of your infrastructure. The alignment part is what kind of business format do you have? Many of you are solo business owners. That's fine. You might have partnerships. You might choose a limited corporation or not. Understand why you might choose one of those. People sometimes make arbitrary decisions about that without thinking through about the impact in long term or even short term of what that does to my financial position. Understand the resources that you have. That might be friends, family, other associates, alliances, people that you can or could hire. Might be what financial resources you have available to you, your own and other people's that you might use. And the work structure. Work structure is quite important, tedious, boring stuff, but quite valuable if you do it. When I get a new client, one of the things I get them to do is create an organization chart, an org chart. Now, what I get them to do is create the org chart of their ultimate finished business. All right? So we talked about the 6 pillars. You need all those things. So you need a marketing manager, a sales manager, a financial manager, etc. And so put all of that down, and yes, write your name in every box. Couple of things that does is make you realize what you've taken on, but also which ones are you good at, which ones should you be doing, which ones can you pay somebody much less to do for you, and that way you can start looking at what should I outsource, what do I need to determine.
Business owner I know, when he started out, he bought himself 6 different coloured hats and wrote on each hat what the task was for that particular role. Like when he was doing the work, he would consider under which pillar it fell and put the hat on accordingly, and it helped him to identify exactly where all his time was being spent. He filled out his diary with the colours and realised the first hire needs to be that person because that's the biggest time suck.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and buy the actual hat, but understanding what task you're doing and what it falls under allows you to understand how your time needs to be structured and if you need to outsource or hire in staff members.
Key point, Stuart. Thank you very much. Good idea. So buy a hat or several hats. But this is the oh, there was a hat. There's a hat person here, right? Ooh. Okay. So get into as much detail as you can about what all the jobs are. Recognize the roles, what the job entails. Detail them out. You can't always hire somebody and say, there's your list of tasks. You typically know what the tasks are, and you hire people to say, which of those tasks can you do? And then you might repackage, because often we build our business based on the skills of the people we have available to us. We can't just take a package of skills and make that person effective on all of them. These days, each person has their own separate strengths and weaknesses, and a team is the idea of organizing the tasks, the categories, so that they all work with the right people doing them. The 4th section, the view forward. How am I doing for time, by the way?
About 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We talked about this one. The vision is, the ultimate view of the business. What does the business look like to the world? What's its persona as such? Strategic plan is the very long-term concept, like what am I trying to achieve here? And then based on that, you build an annual plan. So every year you go back to your strategic plan, you check it, and you build the next year's steps. What am I going to do to get to it? Not in full detail. An annual plan is a fairly high level. But what's next is the quarterly plan. So in the next 90 days or so, what of my annual plan do I need to get done to make sure I achieve my annual plan? The more you can break down your steps into short-term controls, the more effective you are and likely to manage it from a time perspective and the energy and the effort. So I refer to the idea of horizon planning. You really can only plan as far as you can see. You can put ideas in beyond that, but planning as such can only be as far as you recognize you can go. Brexit has disrupted a lot of people's plans because they don't know where things are going. And so the horizon planning has been shortened into, I got to wait and see what happens here or there or whatever before I can make that final. But still, you set as many long-term goals as possible, and then that means how far can I see. The next one is I set annual milestones in there, and these again are pretty high level. And then when I take that, then my 12-month plan is taking one of those chunks, those milestones, and saying, what do I need to do to hit that milestone? Now, this may require some iteration, of course. You may find I can't do it, in which case I need to rethink my milestones, but at least I'm creating some reality to those. And then I repeat that, of course, every year. And then the 90-day plan, which I consider absolutely vital, is repeated every 90 days. And small steps is the most powerful way to make effective progress, especially for a small business owner. Okay? Now, that takes us to the final step, which is the growth cycle. This is the repeating, iterative part of your business. Having got your basic MBA in place, okay, now I need to go forward. I need to keep learning. I need to keep growing and developing. And this is how I make it happen effectively. And that's the 90-day growth cycle. This is the final box on your chart. And you take your annual plan, you break it into a quarterly plan, and then you break the quarterly plan. Here's what I do, and here's what I recommend my clients. Oh, a couple of other things here. This is based again on the 6 pillars. Which parts am I going to implement? Sometimes this is going to be a marketing quarter, or this is going to be developing my products quarter. You know, again, as a small business, I can't be doing everything at once necessarily. I may have to decide in my goal achievement which pieces I need to do at which part of my year, and so on. And Knowledge Builders is a database that I use for my coaching and training. That's all the MBA material, basically broken down into what's readily available. And you need a quarterly review. So each quarter I need to say, how am I doing? Was I sensible about my expectations of my time and effort? If not, do I need to adjust what I expect to get in to my time period? So you can modify and streamline your planning as you go forward. And then what I get people to do is a 90-day calendar. What I do in the workshop is we have a great big sheet with 90 days on it. And each day is conveniently the size of a little Post-it note. And so I get people to identify all of the things in their 90-day plan, write each one on a separate Post-it note, and then decide, besides family and other things I have to do, where can I fit these into my business? How much time do I need to leave to do my job, to meet my customers, to handle my products? What have I got left? And can I make it all work? Because if you don't make an appointment with yourself to do these things, there's always an excuse to shift them. And if in 90 days, on day 1, you shift the first task, you've just made it 91 days. And that doesn't go away. So it's so easy at the beginning to think, well, you know, I've still got 90 days, I can catch up. No, you can't. That's the biggest lie you tell yourself in business. I can always catch up. Nonsense. So make sure you know what the future looks like, at least in terms of what you can plan, so that you know it can be done. And then you've got the strength and the discipline to say, I've got to do this today. If I don't, my 90-day target's gone. And that's what we need to do. We need to have accountability to ourselves to make sure that this is going to work. So put all of your tasks into your calendar amongst your other appointments, and that should be a gold appointment to yourself. Right? Now, you can move it. A customer comes out, I really need this business, I'd love to do business with you, can we meet that day? Okay, you take your task and you take it, put it somewhere else. You don't throw it away. You don't ignore it. You've got to move it somewhere. And sometimes you can waste a lot of energy on a client which may not be good revenue, good value, and you might say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do business with you. It's okay to turn business away. It's okay. I've fired a few clients in my time. Painful at times. I've got one client who joined me in a coaching about 4 years ago, and she was wonderful. She's lots of energy, got into everything, always busy, was charging away. And we'd sit down and we'd discuss her plan. Within 3 days, totally thrown away. Oh, this came up, and I found this, and I've got another shiny object here, and I'm going to do this now instead. I need to focus. And we did this for a few months, and then I said, I'm not coaching you anymore. Now, actually, I do coach her. She calls me every 2 or 3 months, and we have a free coaching session. As she tells me all her latest efforts and what did work and what didn't work, and she's still struggling away at the basic startup level. But she's a great lady, and we have lunch now and again, and that's fine. I'll chat with her, I'll listen to her, but I'll never coach her. So, but this is important. If you need to have success, you need to be accountable to yourself. What I do with people is create a weekly focus sheet. Again, you'll get the slides which show these. So each week, you've got your 90-day plan, you've got your calendar. So on Monday morning, I will list my week's goals I'll transfer them to my calendar, make sure that if I move them around, that I still know what I've got to do. And the most important ones first, which are usually the ugly ones I don't want to do. But that's okay, I've got to do them sometime. So then I've got clarity, I've got what do I need to have in place to do those things, and this is really my coaching sheet. So people bring that to me to prove that they're accountable for the things they're going to do. And so that's the 90-day growth cycle. Ultimately, there is graduation. That can mean 2 things. It means I've learned all I need to do, the business is going great, I'm happy with that. Or my intention is to sell my business or pass it on to my children. And you may have an exit strategy. And by the way, everybody should think at least about an exit strategy, however young and new you are. Sometime you'll should move on from the business. How do you want that to be? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to just wrap it up? Do you want to die behind your desk? There's lots. Well, some people do. You know, I never want to give this up. I love doing my business. I'll die at my desk. That's fine. Well, yeah, okay. So the exit strategy is important. Formula for success. Be very clear on what you want to have in terms of business and dream and future life, what your life looks like. Then figure out what do I need to do to get it? What kind of work do I need to put in? What effort? Of course, am I prepared to put in that effort? And then what kind of person do I need to be able to achieve those things? What mindset, what belief, what success rate, and so on. Those are very important. So the formula is the be, do, have formula, which is who am I and who do I want to be? What actions do I take? What do I need to take? And that gives me the results I need to achieve. It's that simple in concept. Not easy, but it's simple. Okay? So, wisdom is knowing what to do. Some of that you might have learned here, some of it you'll study on your own, some of it you do through your various sessions here. Skill, of course, is knowing how to do it, which you might gain from a book, from courses, from people. And then virtue is doing it. The action is ultimately all that counts. So you can choose to just perform actions. I don't need to learn anything. I just keep trying, and just like the baby learning to walk, I'll just keep doing it until I stay standing. That's great, but running a business might not be the safest way to do that. You can, you can fall down so many times, and financially and so on. It might not be to do that. So the more effort you can put into preparing and planning and understanding where you're going, the more likely you are to have a success. So the key is make sure that success is what you want. Is it the right success? Is it where you want to go? Okay? Just very quickly, there are 3 things that I do, 4 things that I do that I'll just summarize for you. I have been building businesses for many years, both for myself and for my clients. My role is technically called business architect, It's more of an American term, but it's steadily coming over here. A business architect builds businesses, basically. So I am a regional director for the Alpha Group, which is the first level. It's a peer-to-peer group that has monthly board meetings where members come together, kind of like the session you're going to have after this. It's a mastermind and a workshop. It's, here's my challenges in today, how do we help each other? It's not a networking group, it's strictly a solution group. I have a workshop club, which meets once a month, actually right after the Alpha board, and that's a whole series of 60 or 70 workshops we choose from, which are about key elements in running a business. Membership just comes to the ones they choose for that process. The business architecture programs are more the one-to-one with either large or small companies. I work with big corporations as well as individuals, and that is, what kind of business do you want to build? And I help people go through the process of creating that business. Those of you who are doing a fast start, I do have a business game, or it's a gamified business program. Don't confuse it with a video game. But it is a process again, and I've got brochures on that if anybody knows somebody that would be interested. And then the two offers today for the hub. One is my book, which is about setting up the dream and how to implement it. Gives you the structure behind putting a dream in place. £15 on Amazon, £10 to hub members today. I have copies. I'll even sign them for you. And the other one is that I will happily give 2 hours of actual real coaching on business to anybody in the hub by arrangement. So if you want a 2-hour session with me, I'll happily donate that to hub members. That's it for me. Thank you very much for your attention.